This is Alfonso Wright from Brooklyn T, and I am enjoying the Black Futurist podcast. I'm happy to finally be on the podcast. Y'all been trying to keep me out of this for so long. But we in here now. You know what I'm saying? You can't stop me now.
You know that's how the show's gonna open, right?
Absolutely.
That's it.
The Black Futurist.
That's one small step for man.
Okay.
It is the Black Futurist podcast, where we talk about things in the imaginative, speculative future. We also overlay some very cool current events, little science fiction, and get this beautiful outcome of a really entertaining, really fun podcast that typically hosts some really smart people. And I say typically, because every once in a while, we get a regular guy on like Alfonso Wright. Dr. Maurice Dolberry is smiling, and I really sense your joy. You've known Alfonso for the better part of your life, the last 25 years for sure, maybe more. I'm surprised that we still allow him to enter this space of shared intellect, but today he joins us from the basement of Brooklyn T. Welcome, Alfonso.
I'm very happy to be here.
Good. Yes. Good. There's a couple things I want to talk about today. First of all, Maurice, go ahead and say hello.
What up, though? Maurice Dolberry, shouting out Brooklyn T, Black Futurist podcast, and finally got Alfonso Wright to join us after an hour and a half of setup. So fantastic episode already.
Right. And Alfonso, though I said you're in the basement of Brooklyn T, just tell us a little about where you are and what's in those buckets.
I am in the beautiful Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, at the bottom of our tea room. So we have our tea room upstairs where we, engage our guests, and I'm in the belly of the beast where we do some of the blending. I have a little tiny office down here, and behind me are the finest teas on the planet.
Very good. He used to be Tito Get the Boxes. Now he's Tito Get the Buckets.
I've upgraded. Yes.
No more tape.
Yeah.
Sharpies.
I do take a lot of boxes still, to be honest with you. It's a lot of boxes being gotten.
That's great.
Got them buckets of Lipton and
removing staples and emptying tea bags into other containers.
Bro, that was cold. No. We don't use that word in this house.
Well, look, we have two topics to cover today. The first is something that happened to me and Jamie, my wife, while we were driving the other day. Okay. We were driving down a fast-moving 2-lane road, and the gentleman came to a T intersection that abutted up against the road we were on, and he made a really slow right turn into my lane. So I had to get around him. I had to go to the left lane and come back into the right lane, because then we would both come to a light, and I would make a right turn at the light onto another fast-moving 2-lane road. Now, if you make that light from a 2-lane road into another 2-lane road, what I was taught is that you make the right turn into the nearest lane, right?
Right.
Okay. So I'm at a red light. I make the right turn into the nearest lane, and I'm going. The light turns green that I was formerly at, and the same guy who was behind me makes a right turn onto the same road I'm on, but now he turns into the left lane. Mm-hmm. And there were two other cars coming by, and they also had to now get from behind him and then go around the other way. And then we started a conversation that built into this entire conversation in my head about the future of driving and what would better look like, right? So one thing that we see often is the student driver sticker. I started with, we should have some senior driving stickers also. But this requires you to self-identify that you are like a driver who should be, advising other drivers around you that you are questionable. And we can't count on that. Right. What we can count on is technology. So the idea that I had was, I would like to see the cars of the future always be aware of who's driving it. Maybe like, let's make it an analog solution. You take your driver's license and slide it into a slot on the dashboard. Now the car knows who's driving the car. And what does that do? Let's take law enforcement out of it. Who cares about if you get a ticket or not? But if the car knows who's driving it, then we can set as a society parameters for what communication that car gives to all the other cars around it. For example, let's say if you were a student driver under the age of 18. So now the hazard lights or some version of the hazard lights are always on. Even if it's a sub-hazard light, like not the full hazard light, but like a little light on the side like buses have. Just let you know, hazard, this driver is new. That'd be helpful. And then the same thing could happen with drivers who have a certain number of years or points. What do you think?
I think that that's a lot of subjective, lots of different things need to happen. One, all young drivers, all old drivers aren't the same, right? If when Dale Earnhardt is 65, he's not to be the same kind of driver as someone who grew up in New York City and now moved to North Carolina and got their license for the first time, right?
Okay,
So they
that's
should
fair.
have the same hazard lights, right?
Right.
Maybe someone who has a different personality at 18 is a better driver than me at 42, right? So I
Okay.
think that kind of arbitrary using age to differentiate drivers or warn other drivers, slippery slope.
What if we look at, instead of as warning, as like holistic society? What if we say that, hey, when we know there's a student driver, as a father of a teenager or someone who's ever taught another kid to drive, and someone that you cared about, you want other drivers to be kind to your child because they're out driving and they're 18 or they're 17 or they're whatever. So you put the sticker on, hey, please be patient, this is a student driver. As a person with senior parents like you do, wouldn't you want the same from other drivers, to have patience around your dad or mom while she's out driving?
I am astounded right now, B. You grew up in New Jersey. Do you know what we do to people with student drivers driver bumper stickers?
What did you do? What did you do to those people?
Yeah. We zoom past them and look at them like they're stupid, right? Like you are adding a target to these people's backs, and all the jerks on the road are going to just see that and go, okay, this is someone I don't need to value at all. And I'm going to zoom past and cut them off because I can, because they're too slow to be on the road with me.
Okay. Now we know Alfonso Wright from New Jersey's perspective. Dr. Maurice Dolberry, what do you say? You've got aging parents. I don't know if you want to tell any more story, but you got some family stuff going on. You want your loved ones to be protected when they need protection, or at least, treated with kindness and patience. What do you think of this idea?
I'll start with this. I've always said, I wish we could all communicate with each other somehow, visually or verbally, while we're driving. And then I realized that would be an utter disaster and a fiasco, because the only time can you imagine, like, the number of times folks would be like, hey, that was a fantastic merge. You didn't cut me off at all. Point for you. Well done, sir.
Right.
It would just be a way to increase road rage. So I think of it first from that standpoint. Then from a mechanical standpoint, and this is something we've talked about on the show before, I think of it now as someone who has been driving a Tesla now for 2 years. I think now in terms of, let's make it so that the vehicles are aiding the drivers, right? So that's what happens, right? To your point, when I get in my car, I got my phone on, Bluetooth connected, it knows that I'm the one driving.
Right.
And so taking that data, taking all of my driving data, and then making sure that I am safe and that I am driving competently and that I'm driving in ways that help everyone else progress through traffic. That's the way I would look at it. I wouldn't want the subjectivity of a rating system. It's like, what's the insurance company that does the thing where,
probably all of them now,
plug in
right,
all of your driving data. So the moment you go 56 into 55, it jacks your insurance up or whatever, right? I'm hesitant to allow human beings to engage in the sort of subjectivity, because they might be like, hey, look, all y'all old people, anybody 55 and older, all of y'all need a gigantic exclamation point that virtually appears above your car like The Sims, so we know to stay out of your way whenever we drive it. Like, so I think that I actually find some ground, right, where that makes sense in terms of driver and driver profile, but it shouldn't be public facing. It should be internal, and it should be the car that's doing the corrections and stuff for you, not feedback from someone else, some person or entity.
Okay, that's fair. I can accept that. I think that it's part of a holistic solution and holistic view. You're saying that there's merit to the idea that the car should know who's driving it, and that can be helpful. You're just saying it should face internally. I like the idea of setting as a society, or maybe just as the DMV, say, hey, look, once you're 70, we just put the half flash on. But I get you. Let's say if we went down that rabbit hole and it actually did have an external facing thing, I then began to talk about how that would impact the marketplace, because you're inevitably going to have people who don't want this feature. And so what it does now is if this becomes a compulsory feature like daytime driving lights, and people don't want daytime driving lights, then people are going to keep cars on the road longer that don't have daytime driving lights. If the driver identified profile with externally facing indicators is something that people don't want, and new cars are being mandated to have that feature, then you get the 2020 Camry stays on the road for an extra 5 years, which spurs the economy in terms of mechanics, secondhand parts providers, all types of things. It's quite interesting how these things are all connected. But I'm very pro, and because of my compassion for the people I love who are behind the wheel, and also because of my own impatience in my regular driving. As Tito's pointed out, I am from New Jersey, but I also do have patience and reel myself back in when it's identified that this person is somebody who needs more patience, kind of like getting on the airplane earlier.
I will say this as our DEI resident critical race theorist and everything else. Once you start allowing factors and cultural identifiers like age, it's a slippery slope. It's
all over our society.
What's that?
Try to get a drink when you're 17. Try to buy cigarettes when you're 20. There's art. Stuff exists.
Sure. All right. Now be driving and be an Asian woman and make a mistake.
I want you to continue that statement.
You are subject to every single stereotype that we all have heard about women driving, about certain ethnicities, in particular, how Asian people drive, which, let me just say, on its face is absurd. It is purely about confirmation bias. However, that's exactly what will happen. So people will then see that exclamation point. Oh shit, here comes somebody who can't drive, right? So it would immediately stigmatize. I see the face you making, right? B's like, hell yeah, that's what I want. And
I want to know.
The point right there, right? It's to Tito's point. Every 70-year-old driving is not the same, man.
Why has the number of lights on a school bus changed drastically since the time we rode them to now?
In order to provide more safety for children who are getting on and off the bus.
That's all I had to say.
You can't weaponize lights on a bus. You can't weaponize daytime lights. You can weaponize any identifier of anyone, especially if there could be some negative connotation to it. And as human beings using any type of technology, maybe the second thing we do is find a way to use that against other human beings. It's inevitable. So, maybe the intention of it is for safety, but eventually it's going to be the scarlet, letter A on some people's cars.
In your families, have you guys ever had to have the discussion with any of your loved ones that it was time to give up the keys? Tell the story.
Man, love my grandfather, R.I.P. to Hubert Ellis. That was my dude. He taught driver's ed for decades, had a driver's ed car. They used to call my grandfather Crime because he didn't pay. And man was notoriously cheap. And so he take the driver's ed car home, man. That's a practical dude. And so he taught driver's ed, was a fantastic driver technically, and literally taught it and taught proficiency. So it had to be sometime, I'd say maybe around mid 70s or so. I drove with him. This is the dude who I grew up with. This man is like a fantastic driver. And then, older's like, ooh, okay. Oh man, look, he ain't checked no mirror, no nothing. So, driving became something different for him. And so, yeah, as a family, we talked about it like, hey man, you can't. My big cuz Derek, man, he was like, hey, look, he's like, you can't drive no more, man. Look, and he was dope about it. He was like, they both Qs, so they go into the conference. They got to drive, in North Carolina, they got to drive to Raleigh, He's like, I got you. I'm going to pick you up. I got you, So we made that decision and started just slowly taking away driving opportunities from him. So yeah, we had that decision, but it wasn't the let's sit down at the dinner table, like remember the Stevie Wonder joint, don't drive drunk. Well, at the end he's like, give me the keys, We ain't had to have that type of conversation with him. But it was understood, like, yeah, man, this man does not need to be driving no more.
Right. So I ask you that question because I want to see, and Alfonso indicated no, he's never had to have this conversation. We know that there comes a time and their driving deteriorates. That was my whole point. To your point, Maurice, the car can be helpful internally, but also it might be helpful to let other drivers know before they run up on them. Please be patient and be cautious.
Autonomous driving is here and improving. So eventually, none of us will be physically driving. We'll have cars that drive us. I haven't been to San Francisco, but I'm hearing that like that is the breeding ground for like trial and error for the autonomous car. And like they're almost like Ubers at this point, right? So I think when Granny wants to go to the grocery store, Jarvis, her autonomous car will just take her there and take her back, and she doesn't have to worry about that anymore. I think that's probably the future of driving, not the scarlet letter, you're old symbol on top of your roof.
Got it.
Talking to two cats who are from Tri-State, I think all of us are going towards, being New Yorkers, so to speak, in terms of like, we just don't get driver's licenses. So like B, you mentioned family stuff coming up. Yes, we like Dame time around here with the twins on the way. And I think about, 16 years from now, having two 16-year-olds and seeing where the technology is going, I would not be surprised if they are, for example, just in a lifetime where people just don't get a driver's license because of what Alfonso was saying, right? Like driving will be autonomous, owning your car will do most of it for you. 16 years from now, I think that it's a strong possibility that deteriorating driving skill actually becomes a moot point.
Yeah, it's scary. And then part of my personality is like the guy in Roadhouse who just keeps a combustion powered vehicle in the barn underneath the sheet just in case it all goes down. Roadhouse, if it goes down, I'm good. You know what it is.
You're gonna get arrested immediately. Like smog. We haven't had smog in this city in decades.
Yep. And every action movie from the future involves that one guy who has the previous technology and still knows how to use it. Sorry. That's me.
Right. And those movies, as we understand as Black Futurists, are made for the doomsday preppers and the guys who want to feel like the smartest dude in the room. It's the guy who still got the T-Mobile sidekick. Like, this technology, when the grid goes down, you're going to wish you had a T-Mobile sidekick. Like, you know what? I sure will, man. But until then, I ain't buying no damn T-Mobile sidekick. You keep that shit.
Using pager codes.
Right. Like
Ridiculous.
a wire, texting pictures of clock faces.
Speaking of doing things in new and inventive ways, we have this guy here sitting in his basement who sells one of the most analog products and services at the same time, which is putting plants in hot water and waiting in the store. And I'm going to charge you for it. And then I'll send you the plants to your house and you can put them in hot water at your house and wait and then drink it. You can't get too much more analog than that.
They're aqueous infusions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Aqueous infusions. Very good. And what you're doing, though, and that I think that you've been actually heralded for, is bringing digital marketing to that very analog business. And you've gone to many different conferences and been asked to speak, you and your wife, about digital marketing for consumer packaged goods, in particular tea. So I wanted to hear what that sounds like. What does that feel like? And then let's ideate beyond what's happening today and what best practices are and figure out what it might look like in the next iteration. So what's working?
So selling an ancient product, you still have to use modern technology. If I was selling the autonomous car, it's the same audience, right? So it's not really about what product I'm selling. It's about the audience I'm selling it to and all the digital tools available to sell whatever to that audience. So we use multiple social media platforms, whatever our audience is on. So we don't care what we use, right? So we use Twitter or X, we use Instagram, we use Facebook, we use TikTok. We're on all the platforms, even if we don't have a large presence on them. We're on LinkedIn. We're on everything, all right? And it's because if we want to reach our audience and we want to get their attention, we want to build relationships, we have to go to where they are. Back in the day, when T was first started, that might be the town square. But now the town square is everywhere, right? The town square is on YouTube. The town square is Google search. The town square is still the town square too, right? So
Mhm.
there are multiple places that you can engage an audience, and what digital marketers do is figure out the most effective way to do that, not spending a ton of money, or if you have a ton of money, using that money to reach a mass audience.
Now, what was the state of the marketplace before this? You know, tea is like soccer, right? It's like ubiquitous around the world, but not so much in the United States.
Yeah.
And then if you think about tea in our lifetime, Maurice, when you thought about tea, it was probably older people, right? It was like you're drinking sweet tea, maybe. You probably don't even equate that to being plants and water in an aqueous solution. You probably think about that being in a bottle or a powder, right?
Mhm.
But the people who actually were pulling tea out were not people that we were thinking were technology forward, right? So what did the marketing of tea and tea service look like before digital time?
So you could think of it also as craft beer and wine in this country, right? Because they're all kind of moving up at the same time. Tea is behind craft beer and wine, but back when we were kids, there was like Budweiser and Coors, and pretty much that was the only beer companies you ever heard of, right?
Right, most from
The
the Midwest. What there had to be something else.
Old Milwaukee, Bush.
But now you go to the grocery store and there's 20 different kinds of beers, right?
Right.
And now there's like IPAs. You never heard of an IPA back in the day. When you first turned 21, you didn't know what an IPA was. It was like
Right.
there's Bud Light, right?
Right.
Or it's what my dad drinks. I'm gonna get the Heineken because my dad drinks Heineken. So that's what
Mhm.
I get, right? But now there are so many small breweries popping up all over the country, and they're starting to get into packaged goods. So there's much more small folks getting into the big game. The same for wine in this country. Now there's so many different wineries that there's not even a top winery that comes to your head when you think of wine, right? You just think, okay, I'm gonna get a Riesling. Oh, there's 9 different companies that make Riesling. I
Mhm.
don't really know any of these companies. This packaging looks good, right?
Yeah.
That's
Label
usually
wars.
that's usually the extent of people's thinking. So tea is in the same boat. There was Lipton, Bigelow, Special Seasonings, and pretty much no one else was in that market, especially at the places people were looking for tea. In your grocery stores, at your gas stations, you drink tea when you were sick. Around the world, though, tea was part of a culture. There's 1,000 different kinds of tea, just like there's 1,000 kinds of wine, just like there's different flavors in beer. And as that starts to become more prevalent in America, as our consumers are looking for more varieties and flavor, and now they're more available because smaller companies are able to get to market, and bigger companies like the Targets and the Walmarts and your local grocery chain also want more variety. So they're coming to smaller companies, say, hey, you have this, Lapsang Souchong. It's different. My customers want different. So now a tea that was obscure is now becoming trendy. So now as a digital marketer, you have to find that trend and make sure that your product meets that customer excitement where it is. So like matcha is booming right now. Matcha is more popular in America than it is in Japan,
Hmm.
right? Because a couple famous people start drinking matcha lattes, then matcha lattes are popping up at Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, and now it's like, oh, I want a green tea latte. But the matcha lattes the matcha itself is 5,000 years old. It can be rooted back to Buddhist monks drinking it to stay awake, right, in
Yeah.
Japan.
But it's
So
a strange thing, the matcha is the way it is right now. Because you drive downtown Manhattan, you drive past 10 matcha spots. They got matcha soap, matcha donuts. It doesn't make any sense.
yeah, it's consumer trends. So when you really think about a lot of trends, none of it really makes sense. Like a lot of it has existed for forever. Someone makes it popular, it becomes popular, then it stops being popular or it becomes mainstream, and it's like, oh, this has always been a thing. But that's the cycle of almost everything we buy. So it's not just unique to tea. It's like I mentioned IPAs for beer, right? I know that even though I don't like IPAs, it's trendy, it's popular, and the people who like IPAs are evangelists about it. So now it's in my lexicon. But like,
Right.
I drink stouts, right? But I didn't even know what a stout was. And I happened to, by being curious and by going to these small breweries, they have a wall with like 20 different varietals of beer. I'm like, oh, what tastes like Guinness? I like Guinness. Like, oh, Guinness is a stout. Oh, I like stouts. Okay. Now I know a thing, right? It's the same thing of
Right.
the product and the person.
Because you mentioned Buddhists 5,000 years ago trying to stay awake. How do you modernize that sense of practice for those of us who grew up? Like for me, I grew up, I would go to the South, I would drink tea. It was one of the most delicious things I've ever had. It might have been Lipton and sugar, but my grandmother made that. And I'm telling you, man, like, yo, that was it. That picture was gone consistently, right? And there was no ceremony to it. It was just like, man, I'm thirsty and this is sweet and delicious. How do you balance it? How do you marry those two things? Like, because to me, matcha is sweet and delicious. I don't know anything about Buddhists trying to stay awake 5,000 years ago. How do you maintain or modernize, or even maybe not even modernize, maybe just conceptualize tea as a ritual for most folks in the world and as a process compared to, I guess, mainly the United States where we drink it?
So in the United States in particular, people want two opposing things. They want convenience and a compelling story about how this thing is like ancient and great, right? So the reason why all these matcha places are popping up is because they make the matcha for you, right? So the Buddhist monks were grinding the tea leaves and whisking it themselves and getting the water to a perfect temperature and gathering the water from a spring and doing all this work to get this matcha perfect. Right now, you go and you order, I want a matcha latte with almond milk and sugars, and you get it in 10 seconds, right?
Right.
So, but they still want to hear that story of this is where it comes from. This is that rich tradition that you're taking a part of. They just don't want to do the work that rich traditions had to do um, to get it to you. So I think you still tell the story, you still respect the culture, you still amplify that part of it, but then you have to use technology and know-how to get the modern consumer to either wait a minute to have it be ready for you or to just have it as like a CPG, a product they can have right now, make it home quickly. They don't have to think about too much. Someone else did the research for you. Someone else gave you the quick 3 steps or less to make it. So the people want both things.
Do you find like you're pioneering? Because you're obviously having to do a lot of education with like your example with craft beer and finding out that you like Guinness. And therefore I find out I like a stout and now I'm trying other stouts. You have to take tea and say it's not just one thing, which it is to many people, but there are 100 and something number of teas that you've got in the shop itself. So there's a lot of education in your messaging. And then, so I can understand how you would approach a new market that way. How do you find your operation dealing with existing tea drinkers and bringing them to social, and what are they coming for?
A wise man once told me to use vitamins wrapped in bacon. I don't know who this wise man was. He was some vagabond that just drifted in and out of my life. I don't really remember who he was. But that's what we use. So tea ceremony is very pretty. The teapots, the tea light candles, the small cups, and then like the color of the drink itself, right? There are greens, there are reds, there are browns, there are purples. So you use the aesthetic of the ceremony and of the cool factor and the difference. So like a tea room is different than a coffee house, right? A tea room is serene usually. It has a very authentic, serene atmosphere that attracts people to kind of relax and it's not the turn up, it's the turn down, right? So you get people in that way, but then also it's blended with flavors you're used to. So at Brooklyn Tea, we are big at meeting people where they are. So if you are already a tea drinker and you want a fine Japanese gyokuro, we have that for you. If you like things that taste like vanilla, we have a tea like that too, right? If you like things that taste like blueberry, yeah, cool. We can get you in that way as well, right? If you like your tea unsweetened and made at a certain temperature, a certain way, yes, we can do that. If you want a sweet latte, we still have the high quality product inside of the sweet latte, but we start you there. And then as you come to Brooklyn Tea more often, you may end up drinking, a Union that's tippy golden flowery orange pico, and now you're like, oh, that thing I was drinking 6 months ago, I can't believe I was drinking that. That's crazy. Or like we have 16-year-old employees who, one, no longer drink sweetener in their teas, and two, go places and poo-poo their tea. Like we went to like they were like, I went to a restaurant, I ordered a genmaicha. I don't know what that was, but it wasn't our genmaicha. It was crazy, right? It was like, so we
Snobs.
have, yeah, right. I love creating tea snobs. It's one of my favorite things to do, especially people who look like us and people who are unexpected, right? Now we have, because they worked at Brooklyn Tea, 16-year-old black tea snobs going to your establishment going, oh wow, what's your oolong selection, right? The waiter's
Right.
gonna be thrown off, right? The waiter's not expecting that, but that also will change their perspective of the world, but it also changes the world's perspective of them. And it's just a
Mm,
cool thing that tea can do.
right.
There's this notion, right? Like, but you ain't got this, right? And that sort, I mean, that's a marketing thing, right? That is something that you can use to market, people's desire to be an expert in something,
Mm-hmm.
people's desire to be like, well, you don't know about this and I know about this. And there's an interesting, because you've mentioned beer and now you've mentioned tea, and the other part of it is weed.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is legal in most places, you're creating connoisseurs, in dispensaries, now in tea bars and places, and in microbreweries like you're talking about. So there's an interesting kind of confluence of how these three, and all of them, consumer packaged goods, right, that are, have some sort of expertise and notion of expertise and notion of taste. Wine as well, right?
Hmm.
So you all, just a shout out, I mean, for you all pushing that, into our lexicon, and in particular, amongst people of color, um, is dope. What do you do next? How do you stay, how do you stay consistent? How do you stay relevant? How do you, continue to, make sure people are like, oh, but you ain't got this one now.
So you know what? It's another marketing strategy too. Is like let people believe there's still magic in the world. So because tea has health benefits and herbs have health benefits, there's always something you can talk about, right? So if I'm selling hibiscus, right, which is something that everyone has had at least once, right? But I sell it as sorrel, all right, which is a Jamaican drink. It feels exotic to people who aren't Jamaican and who don't have access to Jamaica, right? But also I can sell it as a health product. This helps with, diabetes. This helps with blood pressure. And now that you know that, right? Now that I've educated you on that, you can tell your friends with diabetes and blood pressure. And you are, as you said earlier, the smartest guy in the room, right? So there is lots of different ways to sell any product. And I think for tea, because it's such a vast amount of teas and herbs, that you'll never get bored with it. And you can kind of like I did with craft beer, you can find the thing that's perfect for you, right? I don't have to drink black tea. Maybe I don't like black tea. Maybe I never like black tea. But you know what? Maybe this white tea with peach is the best thing I've ever tasted in my entire life. And now white tea with peach with just a touch of honey is how I drink my tea, right? So it's like now, like as we were talking before, as the Tesla, that you put your Bluetooth in, and now the seat moves up, and the mirrors are changing just for you. This is your thing, right? Because there's so many options. Tea can be the same way, right? It could be um, you make a profile, and I go, okay, now that you've told me this information about you, or now that I've connected to your Facebook profile, here's the perfect tea for you, Mo. It's a lap saying that reminds you of an old fashioned because I know you like your smoky whiskey, right? So
Right.
like I think that's the future of all things. It's like the Jetsons, right? It's you press a couple buttons, it reads your irises, and now you have the perfect beverage in front of you.
And that seems like something perfect, because I think of, you're talking about, 5,000 years ago, monks bringing calm or trying to, wake up, and all these different things. And now in 2023, I think I'm gonna make up some. I got this chai matcha latte with tap root and this flower that comes from the top of a mountain that cures sand palm. If you got it from this kung fu technique, right? And they're gonna put that in a styrofoam cup, hop onto a subway, and gulp it down on their way to work. For you, as someone who is a tea sommelier, how do you balance those notions? I mean, part of it is just like, look, what you do with it out the shop is cool because I done made my loot. I know that's part of it. But as someone who is invested right in this culturally, and has traveled, of course, as we've talked about on the show before, you've been to India. How do you balance and maintain those things within your branding?
Yeah. So my job is not to judge you. My job is to find you what you need, right? And all the education and learning I do is so I can get you the right product for you, right? Way back in the day, one of my first jobs out of college was working at a Foot Locker, right? And it was, it was like that kind of in between where you didn't find your corporate job yet, but you still need to make money for rent, right? But what I learned at that, low level, quote unquote, retail job was that you have to learn to not put what you want someone to buy onto them, right? Like, yeah, I wish you would buy the most expensive Jordans because I'm on commission, but you came in for some Chucks and I keep pushing these Jordans, you're not gonna buy anything, right? So if you want some Chucks, we got Chucks. I'm gonna get you some Chucks, hopefully sell you some socks with it and some shoe cleaner, right? So it's the same idea, right? Is yes, I don't drink, sweet teas with blueberries in them very often, but that's not you're not coming to me to ask me what I drink most of the time. You're coming to me because I'm supposed to be an expert that can help you find what's right for you. With all back to marketing, you know, all marketing is supposed to be helping you find the thing that's best for you in the best way, right? Helping you expose, like like you being exposed to my product is supposed to be beneficial both to me and you because you wouldn't have known about it otherwise. So, social media marketing is supposed to make it easier. Like the algorithm's points was supposed to say, you know what, you like X, Y, and Z. Here's Q. Based on people like you might like Q. And you go, oh, I do. Like I make a joke of Nike's excellent at digital marketing because I only buy two kinds of Nikes, right? I only buy Jordans and Air Maxes. And somehow all my Nike ads are Jordans and Air Maxes. I don't know how they did it. I never said it explicitly. It's just like they somehow figured out that hey, this guy buys these two shoes in different colorways and different models, but pretty much these two things. So we're not gonna market the Zoom running shoe to this guy. He doesn't buy that from us. He buys these two things. So when the all black ones come out, I'm gonna put the all black retro ones on his feed somewhere, and every time I'm like, damn, I want those.
When you go to these conferences and you're being asked to do this presentation about digital marketing in the coffee tea space and other CPG space, or what is your read of the audience and where they are, and why do they keep on asking you back?
Yes, because tea, like you were saying, is such a niche market, and most of the folks in tea are very, very small businesses. I mean, either no storefront whatsoever or one small storefront in Albuquerque, New Mexico, very small businesses. So they don't have the budget for digital marketing. Most of them didn't come from a marketing or even a business background at all. So most of them don't know where to start, and they feel very overwhelmed by all of it. And a lot of them are older. Like some of these is they're like, I worked in corporate for 60 years, and then I say, you know what, I'm gonna start a tea business. So they're overwhelmed by the entire idea of it. And what I try to do is simplify it, but also don't sugarcoat it. So one of the things we always tell people is be on all the platforms. You have to be good at all of them, but you can't feel threatened by a new platform or new technology. You have to just dive in, and maybe your TikTok isn't as good as your LinkedIn, but still have a presence on TikTok and still post a video every once in a while because you never know what's going to resonate with that audience. You just don't know. So a lot of what I'm doing is I'm a nerd. I'm a digital marketing, I was an expert at least. So I use that knowledge and know-how. I break into small digestible pieces, and I let people who are kind of afraid say it's not that scary. Here's an easy thing you can do. And then here's how that can be duplicated to a more complex thing. Like, if ad buying is scary, because it can be, but you know what? With Google ads and with Facebook ads, with TikTok ads, you can do $5. You can start at $5 and fail miserably, or you can do well with $5 and then turn it to 15, then turn it to 50, then turn it to 500 with return
Right.
on investment.
How do you keep this lesson and this PowerPoint deck, especially in the era where you have e-commerce, which means there is no more local? How do you prevent this from being your core business of teaching other people how to market, or how do you prevent from creating your competition, being that there's no more local?
I don't mind the competition, right? So in tea especially, it's tea versus everyone else, right? Almost, it's like Detroit versus everybody, right? Uh, I want more people to drink tea, because the more people that drink tea, the less education I have to do. The easier for me to get tea drinkers to come to my product than to teach someone how to be a tea drinker. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with the tea industry just taking over the world, and then life is just easier for me in general. So that's not really a factor of it. And then like with the changing of it, I do this work anyway. I'm always going to see what the next new technology is, the next new digital marketing trend is, and to be able to share that with people who also have another interest I have, which is tea and the tea business, I think is fun. It's lovely. I enjoy doing it, and we keep getting asked to come back because, as Jamila says, my wife and business partner, no one can outjoy us. Like no one can show that we are excited about both the tea industry and the different ways we can share it with people. So I think that, thinking about like, oh, I'm gonna hold this trade secret, just for us so we can beat everyone else. I think that's actually a mistake, because we're in such a niche business that the more people are pushing this message of tea is delicious, the more we all win.
Yeah. So what's next? If you had the magic wand or the spell book and you said, "Hey, man, I'm doing really well with this digital marketing, the tools that we've currently got. I'm able to inform my people. I'm able to find new people, and I can also, with e-commerce technology, I can kind of track what people's preferences are and feed that. But what's missing? What's the friction that you're still running into, or what is the great, wish that I had? I wish I could do. It'd be even flyer. I get a 10x if I could do this. What's
Yeah.
next?
So because I listen to the Black Futurists all the time, uh, there's a lot of people who are on your podcast who are like on the forefront of a technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I constantly, especially with like AI and Chat GPT and all the other ones, I kind of feel like there's something coming that like AI can make my business better that I just don't know it yet, right? I'm looking forward to like the Jetsons, where some way AI can make my knowledge come to the customer. It looks Mo in the irises, and then Mo knows what Brooklyn tea is already gonna be ordered because it already has Mo's credit card file, right? So now a package is already being sent to you with very simple instructions that you put into some gadget that Brooklyn tea makes, that makes you traditional, high quality loose leaf tea at the touch of a button, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like all of it's coming. I feel like, I'm very optimistic about AI in the future, because just playing around with it, with limited knowledge, I'm able to do some things that I couldn't do normally. Like I'm able to write emails quicker based on some notes I can jot down, right? Like, I don't know about you guys, but I stare at the page for 30 minutes. I write, I look at it like, oh, let me rewrite this one paragraph. Now I'm editing, right? And editing is way easier than writing.
Yep.
Exactly.
Definitely been there before. It's very difficult for me, like for people who can just write things down, like, yeah, you just type in and get your thoughts out. I can't do that because I edit as I go along. I'm thinking, I'm looking to all too often I get caught up in trying to find a perfect word or phrase. So yeah, I feel you on that, man. Definitely. But that speaks to what you're talking about, right? Because you're ultimately in a service industry, and you're providing a service through a good, you're educating folks. And so, yeah, you want to get the communication right. It's important because while the person is probably going to walk off in the paper cup, go on the subway, guzzle it down, and, yeah, I like matcha tea hibiscus sorrel root, whatever, right? With elderberries in it. And then they're gonna come back, and it's part of their routine because of how you've communicated with them, because of the experience, and because of the joy that you all have and the way you express it on social media. So, I feel you. I see where that comes in.
Hey, switching subjects and kind of tangential is the impact of AI on many things. As you talked about, Dr. Dolberry, you're a wrestling coach. I was watching the Ravens, and they were talking about how Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson uses the thing on his sleeve, the little book on his forearm, when most quarterbacks don't use it. And he's got like the Tom Brady book, and the offensive coordinator will say, okay, play number 32. And he'll look at it, boom. He's also now they can hear the offensive coordinator in their thing for however many seconds before the play starts. We're moving in a direction where technology is impacting sports. In some future, AI is trainable. You can have a wrestling coach who says, hey, let's run a simulation. Johnny has, these are his points that we, just like a video game, we know what his speed, his strength, and all that stuff, left side, right side. We know we've kind of analyzed his opponent, and we know that if we call play 3, we're going to have a good chance of winning. How do you feel about that? Is that fair game? Is that out of bounds? How far does the AI thing go?
I think it'd be fantastic. I've seen people play around with models in headgear, and for because we got 2 wrestlers on here, for all of the all those morons talking about wrestlers wearing ear muffs, which makes absolutely no sense, because you know what earmuffs are, and you realize that's like if you're on a football field and you're like, hey, all these guys have on hats.
Hey, if you don't wear them earmuffs, you see what happens to them ears.
Headgear.
Correct. No one in wrestling wears earmuffs, just like no one on a football field has a cap on top of their head, right? So we have there have been people who have tried to get that same technology that's in football helmets inside of wrestler headgear. So as a coach, you can talk to the athlete while you're doing it.
Yeah.
We use video all the time to break things down. I think AI would be fantastic to do that. If I knew, for example, my wrestlers' speed when they did a leg attack, when they level change and then drive towards their opponent, if I know their average speeds on certain shots, right? So now as I'm recording, the AI is calculating all of those things. That makes me a better coach.
That's already possible.
It makes me a better informed coach. And I'm not scared of that at all, because ultimately it's similar to the point that Tito's talking about with T. There's the knowledge and there's the data that you can gather, but ultimately there's the coaching that has to occur, right? And there's a difference between sending someone instructions and doing actual coaching. And so, B, you know this, of course, as a coach yourself, right? With nutrition, you can send someone a perfectly laid out plan, moment to moment, for what they need to do during the day, literally second to second. And you could use AI to, monitor them, to calculate as they walk around and, collect all their bio data and everything else. If you don't have someone who is applying expertise to teach it, people tend not to use the data in that way. It still requires someone to analyze and then coach you through the processes. So not afraid of it at all. I can't wait for it to reach wrestling and to reach us so that we can use all of those things. I'm trying to get better. We're trying to win multiple state championships around team-wise. So yeah, I'm not afraid of it. And I don't believe that it diminishes the role as a coach.
And it's doing what we're already doing. We're just doing it better, right? Like, I remember wrestling and my coach yelling stuff at me, but the other coach is yelling stuff at the other guy, and the crowd was yelling stuff, and my teammates are yelling stuff. So I'm like, fireman carry? What? Like a guy in front of me trying to put me on the ground, right? So it's like a lot's already happening. So now if it was like my coach whispering, "Hey, the left leg, sweep the left leg," I'm like, got it, coach, right? Like, it's super simple, right? Or if it's like being able to, like, almost like a video game, like, hey, this guy you're about to go, he tends to circle to his left, he's stronger than you by far, but he's not as quick as you, right? So now I have a different game plan. I didn't have to figure out 2 minutes into the match, right? Because a lot of that data is still being analyzed by our analog brains.
Well, what's too far? We've got F1 now has autonomous driving, right? It exists. You can go to the track in Vegas and watch 2 F1 cars ride around the track, and there's no driver. The machine is programmed, it has learned, it knows the moves to make, and it's going fast as heck with no damage or risk to the driver inside the car. And there's probably some override somehow that a drone pilot or something could say, okay, I'm taking over here at this curve. But is there a point where AI's involvement in sports goes too far?
Yeah,
I think at that point, you're watching computers race against each other. That's interesting, right? Now, I wouldn't compare that to watching humans race against each other. I think that's, those are two different things in terms of what I'm looking for, right? And my appreciation for what's happening. I tend to downplay the ability of computers and artificial intelligences to execute human things, right? Like driving a car, the precision with which they can do things and operate, move the steering wheel, move the pedals. Look, Eddie Murphy said that, talking about Stevie Wonder. I ain't impressed. That don't impress me. It's a computer. Of course it can. But it's fascinating, right? Man, it's life-size RC cars. And I used to build, little radio controlled cars. Now it's life-sized. And now it's okay. Now, instead of me holding the sticks, I'm programming a computer to do it. To me, it's just the next iteration of that.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is it kind of leaves sports, becomes theater, right? If I'm watching two autonomous cars, it's more entertainment of, like you say, like RC car racing, but it's not like watching who's the fastest human being on the planet. I think that's a different, both are forms of entertainment, but one is like the human competition thing, and then one is like, oh, this is cool to watch. This is fun.
Yeah. It's similar to like old analog slot machines versus the new computerized ones. I can't really do the computerized ones. I just feel like, dude, it's like watching computer chess. Computer playing another computer. I'm just the loser. I'm going to put money in. So that's why I asked just to see.
Are more addictive. Like they've algorithmed out the color, the sounds of all the computerized ones, so they actually make more money. More people want that.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay out of that number.
Yep,
you're right.
That's why we play poker with humans.
Right. Exactly. Hey, man, thank you so much. We know that we can find you on 411 Lewis Avenue in Brooklyn. And if we want to buy online, we can go to brooklynt.com. Or if we want to check you out on Instagram, we can go to @BrooklynT. For some reason, your x.com URL is something completely different, but we're not even going to bring that up.
Oh, can we though? Can we bring that real quick?
Sure.
Okay. So Brooklyn T was taken already by someone outside the country who's been suspended for like 8 years, but Twitter does not release old handles, so it's just taken forever. It's done.
You might want to check with them because they got a new guy running things, and he kind of does things the screwball way. So maybe you can go get that thing released. You might have to pay $12 a month.
Yeah, if Twitter even exists in 2 years.
That's an interesting topic. I think it's very hard to eliminate a thing once it's become seen as utility. And I think that the platform formerly known as Twitter has reached utility status. It's like trying to turn off Con Ed.
So I think it's a little different, right? I think it's like trying to turn off Optimum cable, right? But there's Spectrum, there's satellite, there's different versions of the same thing. I don't know if he's doing it on purpose or it's like was it? Sometimes incompetence looks like benevolence, right? Everything he does seems to be to the detriment of the platform, right? It's like, oh, I'm gonna let the racists back on. Oh, I'm gonna say F you to the people who pay for this thing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make it like it doesn't, like, these don't seem like business moves. These seems like I'm gonna slowly pick this thing apart, gather your things before it all crashes. Like, you better back up your tweets.
Right. Okay. So then the question becomes, have you closed your account?
Oh, like I said, agnostic about platforms. I'm on all of them. I'm on Spill. I'm on Threads. I'm on whatever new thing comes next. I'm on everything, but also, like, I wouldn't put all my eggs in the Twitter basket.
Got it. Okay. Hey, man, Alfonso Wright, thank you so much.
This is Alfonso Ali Wright from Brooklyn T, and I am enjoying the Black Futurist podcast, one of the best podcasts to ever hit the podcast world. Best.
We accept this.
Okay.
We accept it. Good.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
That's all we got.
I'm happy to finally be on the podcast. Y'all been trying to keep me out of this for so long. You know what I'm saying? But we in here now. You know what I'm saying? You can't stop me now.
You know that's how the show's going to open, right?
Absolutely.
That's it.
Okay. Have you seen the Stamps from beginning documentary on Netflix yet?
No.
No.
Aren't you a blackologist? Come on, bro. What's happening?
Stamps from the
Yes.
beginning?
Yeah.
The beginning of what?
No, the book.
From the beginning?
Yeah, Stamp from the beginning. The definitive history of racist ideas in America. It was a best-selling. It was a best-selling book.
Oh,
And now
Ibram
it's a
Kendi.
documentary on Netflix.
Absolutely. Ibram X. Kendi. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. I have not watched it. It's queued up. I am a blackologist. It's
Yeah.
just I ain't got to it in my queue yet. But yeah, we rock with Ibram Kendi, Professor Kendi for sure. Yeah. I'm gonna check it out.
All right, put down the One Punch Man for a second, okay?
I finished that.
It's amazing. That's one of my favorite animes. But
One Punch Man.
I'll
Good.
tell you, if you haven't seen it, you'd like it.
I haven't. I watched Blue Eye Samurai recently though. That was
I
great.
just finished up last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoyed
Well
that.
done.
Yep.
Bring it back. Do number 2. We'd love to see it.